Coach Todd Mason, the head football coach at Eastside High School and a Manchester alum. I have to put that in there. You got to get that one in there. But with homecoming for the Spartans this week, Coach, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And another really good season this year, Coach. I mean, you come out 7-2 overall, 4-0, and get another conference win, and you finished up last week at Central Noble with a big shutout. Tell us a little bit about your season, your year in this respect, and kind of how it's gone after the tremendous year you had a year ago.
Well, starting out the season, we had a lot of question marks when you lose Laban Davis and you lose some of the guys that we had that were in leadership positions. You always have questions on where you're going to be at, and we had those. And week 2 we went down to Adams Central and battled a very good Adams Central team to a 25-21 game, and we lost Dax, our stud, that week, and it kind of hung over on us on week 2, and we lost Dakota, our other stud linebacker, on the second series of the first game of the year. So we were down 2 linebackers, and we have slowly, as the season progressed, kept getting better and better with our guys that were replacing them. And now we've developed a little bit of depth where we can get people rest, and we can do a lot of things that are really cool, that we can keep people fresh. And everybody knows Dax Holman, and when you can get him off the field for a couple of plays and get him a breather, it certainly does some good things for us.
Yeah, and Laban Davis was a phenomenal player, and I think St. Francis is finding out how phenomenal of a player he is here in Fort Wayne. But you've also had another quarterback rise to the occasion, Carson Jacobs. Right now, he's thrown for over 600 yards, but he's also rushed for 985 yards. How is that adapting from a Laban Davis to Carson, filling big shoes, and he's done it, I would say, fairly well for you.
Oh, there's no doubt he's done it well. People were like, there were a lot of people that thought that we were a one-man show a year ago, and we certainly were not a one-man show. Now, Laban Davis was one heck of a football player, but our defense was really good. Our offensive line was really good, and our offensive line is very good this year, and our defense is very good this year. And Carson Jacobs has just stepped in seamlessly, to be honest with you, with what we do. And it's a product of the system that we run. When you have a good 5 dudes up in front of you, it makes it pretty easy to gain some yardage and feel comfortable back there. And I can't say enough about what Coach Daisy has done with our offensive line over the last 6 years. And we were so bad when we first took over up front. We couldn't do anything right up front.
I know that feeling.
No, I'm being serious when I say
that.
I
know.
and Coach Daisy and I would just sit for hours and hours and try to figure out through scheme how we could block people. Well, we just learned that if you build them in the weight room, they'll block for you. It doesn't really matter. So, we've done that, and I'm certainly proud of those 5 guys up front and Carson Jacobs. They have all stepped up this year and played some major roles for us.
Yeah, Coach, this is Eric Dudkevich. Thanks for coming on upon further review. Beyond the X's and O's, for you, Coach, 3 straight previous seasons of 10 wins or more, looking to get it 4 in a row. You guys have really built this program solid. What is it about, the last 2 or 3 years of this team? You guys got to semi-state a year ago. That motivation, a 3-point loss at semi-state, to come back this year, what kind of motivation did it serve this team to really battle through the tough NECC and really here we are on the cusp of another playoff run and what this team wants to accomplish long term?
Well, motivation, I believe, and you know, people may think I'm wrong, but I think the motivation comes every day in the weight room. We've got, you know, I teach weights, and so I have our dudes every day, and every day is a new day to get better at yourself, and you know, our kids buy into that. Like, for example, Dane Siebert on last Friday power clean 315 pounds, and I was like, that's enough for today. It's on game day. Um, you know, I was just like, we if we want to get a little higher than that, maybe we can do it next week, you know. And we have that mentality throughout our program that it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. If it's a squat day, we're going to squat and we're going to get after it. And our kids play like that on Friday night. So the motivation is really stems from the weight room that leaks onto the football field. And that motivation is you've put a lot more time into this than most other people do. Don't allow them to beat you when we have put a whole lot more into it.
Sure. Looking ahead to sectionals, you guys are in 2A sectional 35. You line up against Wabash first. Um, the switch over from regular season to a sectional where you've got different teams from different conferences, Wabash, Manchester, Lures is in your sectional, Whitco, all those different teams, different styles of play, going from the NECC to this kind of hodgepodge sectional. From a coaching perspective, you know, how do you treat, you know, the week one game and potential for playing other opponents down the line? How does that look in some of your game preparations for a team that is so good as yourselves?
Well, you know, when you get to playoff time, there's no such thing as being able to look ahead because you can't. If you do, if you lose, you're done. And so, you know, the process is to make sure that we're ready. You know, I just finished up the scouting report about an hour ago, and we got that ready, and we're going to have the kids in on Monday, and we're on fall break this week. So we get a little bit of extra time that we don't normally have in a regular week this week to do some things that we can really zero in. And you know, you can say what you want about Wabash; they're 3-6, but they've got a heck of an athletic quarterback. They got a heck of an athletic running back, and you know, I've seen number 11 take 2 to the house on kickoff return. So that scares you as a coach, and because you don't want those things to happen to your team. So, you know, for the process, it really doesn't change for me. The cool thing is I've never played Wabash. I've never, you know, and so having an opportunity to play a team that I've never played, that's kind of exciting for me. And you know, next week I've never played Whitco or Manchester. So you know, with the realignment of the sectional, it's kind of exciting for me that we get to play some teams that we haven't had the chance to play in the past, and we get to prepare for people we don't necessarily know as well as we do our conference opponents.
Now, I've been out to a couple of your practices. You're a pretty energetic guy. What is, you know, what do you love so much about football? Especially, you know, the hard hitting aspect of it. You're one of those fiery coaches. It's fun to be at practice, fun to be around you. What is it about this game that you love so much that you hope to instill in your players and your staff as well?
This is the last game available that truly requires people of all sizes to work together, to come together as a group. Because if you guys all see them as sportscasters, you see the teams that have that it factor. And what excites me about this game is being able to generate whatever that is. And every team's different. You know, I didn't have to do a whole lot a year ago. Laban Davis did a whole lot of that on his own. This year, I've had to do a little bit more. But what's fun is once you get it, that's what's fun to me. And we played our most complete game last Friday night against Angola. We played physical, we played fast, and we were all over the place. We hit everything that moved, and that's what Eastside football is. And you know, I let my dudes know that, and you know, I was pretty proud of how they played last Friday, and I can't wait to see them to continue to develop upon that performance on Friday night and see how that generates throughout the playoffs.
Hey, Coach, you said that you are on fall break, correct?
That is correct.
Let me ask you this. Coaches are, I guess you could say, we're like train rats. We set the schedule and we move forward, and please don't change it on us because we don't adapt to things all that well sometimes.
Right. Yep.
Not having school this week, is that a concern for you just from the standpoint of the amount of time kids have on their hands, particularly?
Well, I just told you I finished up my scouting report about an hour ago, and one page of that is based on, hey, jugheads, we still have to get to bed on time. Staying up all night and sleeping all day leads to bad practices. So I've got all that. We take care of that. Our kids are pretty mature. This happens to us every year, the first round of sectionals, and so we build in some things. We have a huge Halloween team building party on Wednesday night after practice, which I want to let everybody know that of the 4 years that we've had it, that in the dress up competition, I have won 3 of those 4 years. My team that I draft, and we make everything very competitive around Eastside. So we got a competitive Halloween costume party at the bowling alley, and then we bowl afterwards. And it's just the generation of competition. My kids get tired of hearing these types of things, but when I was 8 years old and I'm playing my grandmother in checkers, I'm going to beat her butt. I'm just going to tell you, it's going to happen, and I'm going to talk a little smack afterwards to grandma. And our guys have somewhat developed that type of mentality. We talk about it a lot, and to get back to we get to do cool things this week that we normally don't get to do, which are really fun, that aid us in the development of the love for one another. Is what happens this week.
That is, I tip my hat to you, Coach, because, I think every coach has to go through this. Some did it last week before the final week of the season. Some are doing it this week. So it's not, uniform throughout, but the creativeness that you just talk about, I tip my hat to, because I'm not a creative guy when it comes to that stuff. So I always had an assistant that I always hired that was always the most creative in our bunch. And I always kind of said, here's the deal. Whatever you think of, we'll do, because I won't be the one criticizing you, because I just don't have that. But I appreciate that. I mean, I think the kids do too, because, you get them out of this atmosphere of competitive sports, on Friday nights, and you let them just be kids. Sometimes it goes a long way.
Sure does.
And in getting them to play at the top on Friday night. So that's a great thing. That I commend you for that aspect of things. But before we let you go here, I'm going to ask a question. I get a chance to ask this of Casey, because this is a question I think we all come up with around this time. Do you feel the first round of the sectionals should be seeded, where, you have, the teams 1 through whatever, to eliminate some of these games that round 1, you've got the 2 best teams lining up against each other, and the 2 teams that don't have the best records lining up to each other, and you create something that really shouldn't be created in the playoffs?
Well, you're trying to get me in trouble with Robert Falcons right now. I know you are.
I will put the disclaimer on this.
Listen, I'm not really good with filters, and so I'm going to filter this as much as what I can. As a former wrestling coach, seeding is a big component in a wrestling tournament. It's absolutely huge.
Correct.
And the problem with seeding is not being able to get head-to-heads and all that stuff, especially with our new section. But we do have some tools available to us. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go off the reservation on you on Sager and ratings, but they are a piece that you could use as a seating criteria. And then obviously when you did have some head to heads, you've already got that in your pocket. So to answer your question without getting too crazy, what I'm saying is I think it would be a good thing for Indiana high school football to seat them. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I was laying in bed on Friday night after the game, and I couldn't go to sleep 2 weeks ago when the draw was going to come out because I knew we were going to get Lures first round. I just knew in my heart.
Yeah.
and Cherubusco in this sectional is a darn good football team too.
Right.
This should be separated to make sure that we get the right people playing for a conference. I'm sorry, a sectional title.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the true answer is, but
right.
Like I said, I've got a background in seeding things as a wrestling coach. It can be done. It's going to take a little work, but it could be done.
Well, the reason why I bring this up, I think, I've probably been one of those that maybe wasn't for the seating aspect of it for some time, but now looking at it, I think it does a disservice when you don't. And I look at a team like Carroll, for instance.
Right.
Carroll, depending on I'm throwing out a hypothetical here because this is no disrespect to the Penn Kingsmen or anybody else in that sectional, but Carroll may not play a home game until I think the regionals, if I'm not mistaken, because of the way the draw worked. And that to me is a crime. When you force a team, any team, to have to potentially play 3 road games in a row, that just doesn't seem to set well with me when it comes to the tournament. And you're making any team, in some respects, go on the road for three times in a row. But it happens. It's not that it hasn't happened. It's not like somebody hasn't paid 3 road games in a regular season either. And I think it's one of those things that you're right. I think it can. What would you be your take, I guess, of the IHSAA Coaches Association? Because that has a pretty big voice in all this. And I'm not saying it hasn't been a topic of conversation, but what would be your, I guess, testing of the water, so to speak?
Well, it's just so hard for me to speculate on what everybody's thinking because I truly don't know is the answer. Have we as a football coaches association talked about it? The answer is yes, we have. But just because we're talking about it doesn't mean the IHSAA is willing to hear what we have to say about it either.
Right.
I think, and I think that's a big hurdle that you would have to overcome before you even start doing any of this. And so without getting anybody in trouble, I'm just saying that two organizations would have to come together first to at least put together a process of how you would do it, and each side would have to listen to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't mean to throw you in the kind of
you're fine, Coach.
frying pan there, but it's been it's been a conversational piece that I think we've all had, especially with us in our broadcast group over the last couple of weeks. And our compadre Brett Rump is one that I think for years has kind of beat this drum about the first round. And after studying it, I have to, hate to say this, kind of agree with him on some of these points that he was making.
Hey, Brett's a pretty good dude. You can agree.
We don't want to give him too much credit now. But I think all in all, it would make a better field I guess I would say, in the sectionals at least. I mean, coming to the regionals, maybe you throw it back out and you do what you've always done, but at least in that first round of the sectionals being but that's neither here nor there. Just a conversational piece that I thought I'd throw in there and get your background on it. Cause like you said, being a wrestling coach at one time, you gave that a pretty good explanation as it pertains to the seating component and how important it is, especially in that sport. So, but Coach, we hope to see you down the road here. We didn't get a chance to get up to your area this year, and hopefully we can, get you in one of your games this year. We had a great one last year when we had your Lures game, and that was a lot of fun that night down there on the south side of Fort Wayne, when you came into Lures High School and won a big ball game. That was truly a great game, and seeing Laban Davis and all your teams, Dax Hall, all those guys. I think you've got some great kids. I think they play hard, and we wish you nothing but the best from here upon further review and 1380 The Fan.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and thanks for having us on. When I took over 6 years ago, we didn't get much press, and you guys have done awesome, and all the media outlets have done a great job of covering Eastside, and we got some pretty special kids that play at Eastside, and it's just good to see them get recognized in the bigger format in the greater Fort Wayne area. So we certainly appreciate it on our end, and hopefully we can do some pretty cool things here in the playoffs, and who knows?
Yeah,
that's why you play the game, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, good luck, Coach, and stay healthy along this long track of the playoffs, and hopefully it'll end up where you want it to go this year.
Thanks again, and appreciate it, and hopefully we can see you soon.